Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to English 454. This is lecture 16 and we are doing Wordsworth's theory of poetry. Previously we have discussed the difference between literary criticism and romantic criticism, and while we were discussing the romantic criticism, we discussed how it was different from the classical criticism and what Wordsworth has to do with. We have discussed that Wordsworth was one of the pioneers of romantic criticism. Romantic criticism was different from classical criticism in the way that these people who believed in romantic criticism, they were the liberal kind of people. They were the people who were affected by the political instability of the world. The French Revolution, the American War of Independence, the German Revolution, all these things led people to think about their priorities, and they also thought about the way they have been leading their lives. So the thought about leading their lives led to their thoughts about the way they have been writing literature. So previously literature has been written by people in order to follow certain rules which were set out by the ancients. So classicals तो exactly उन्हीं rules को follow करते थे, लेकिन जो romantics थे उन्होंने इस rule को, इस set of principles को challenge किया. उन्होंने कहा what is there to be gained by following these principles. They questioned each and every aspect of classical criticism, classical literature, classical poetry. तो जो Augustan age थी जो romantics को precede करती है, उस एज के हर डोमेन को, उस एज के हर स्ट्रैटा को चैलेंज किया गया है रोमांटिक क्रिटिसिज्म में, रोमांटिसिज्म में. They challenged not only the subject matter, but they also challenged the form in which the literature was written. So when we talk about Wordsworth, we think of how he has changed poetry. तो जब आप Wordsworth को romanticism से हटा के उसको criticism के हवाले से देखते हैं, तो we focus on the preface that he has written to the lyrical ballads. Lyrical ballads उसकी collection of poems थी, और उसको लिखने से पहले he has written this one preface जिसको आप दिबाचा भी कहते हैं. The preface is very important. It's considered one of the very important documents of criticism. Okay? It changed the entire outlook towards criticism. It tells you how things should be done. It was written by Wordsworth in order to prove why he has done what he has done, because he has changed the complete outlook. I've already told you that he changed how people used to think about poetry. He changed the concept of poetry. He changed what should be the subject matter of poetry. He changed how poetry should be written, what should be the form of poetry. He changed the diction. He changed the language. He also changed what was the previous conception or preconceived notion of a poet, what a poet should be like, what kind of a person he should be. So जब उसने ये सब कुछ change कर दिया, तो he needed to make an atmosphere for his poetry to be acceptable by the general public, and this he has done in the shape of preface to the lyrical ballad. अब जो lyrical ballads का preface है, ये basically Wordsworth के अपने अल्फाज में, it was written in order to make people, in order to explain to people why he has chosen this genre of poetry, why he has chosen the rustic life as the subject matter of poetry, why he thinks that the common language of the common man, language of the conversation, is the language that should be used or that can be used in poetry. He also discussed how prose and poetry are not much different as was previously believed. He also discussed in the preface that he thinks that imagination is the essence of poetry. It is the basic spirit of poetry. No poetry, no piece of literature can be extraordinary or can be well constructed unless and until it is based on emotions. तो उसकी तो अपनी definition जो poetry की है वो ये है कि it's a spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions which are recollected in tranquility. This is something that would be created when there is a spontaneous, yakdam, बगैर किसी तैयारी के, there's a superfluous overflow of emotions. आपके emotions rise होते हैं and they come out and then they are expressed. How are they expressed? When you sit back and you relax, and if the emotions were powerful enough, when you relax, the emotions would come back to you. When you're relaxing, these emotions would come back to you. You will recollect it, and when you're recollecting it, you'll experience the same kind of pleasure. And when you experience the same kind of pleasure, then you'll be able to express it in the poetic form. फिर उसने आपको ये भी बताया कि पोइट जो होता है वो किस तरह का आदमी होना चाहिए, बिकॉज प्रीवियसली तो क्लासिक्स जो थे दे बिलीव्ड कि पोइट वाज द काइंड ऑफ अ पर्सन हु शुड बी एक्सट्रीमली moral, extremely pious, because he's supposed to impart wisdom, he's supposed to preach, he's supposed to tell people what to think. Lekin Wordsworth says that the sole purpose of poetry is to provide pleasure. So the poet is going to be a person who will have this organic sensibility. Organic sensibility is something that he's born with. He would have this natural instinct in him to write poetry. He would be appreciating the things around him, or the people around him, or the phenomena around him, because he has this organic sensibility. He would be born with it. But in addition to that organic sensibility, the poet is supposed to have a personality that is known as pensive personality, a personality that can think long and that can think deep, not a superficial personality, and a personality that's not impulsive. So far I've just given you an introduction of preface and what Wordsworth was trying to prove when he was writing this preface. We have to remember that Wordsworth discussed not only the definition, but he also discussed the nature of poetry, the purpose of poetry, the mode of poetry, the form of poetry. He also discussed the end that is achieved by poetry. He discussed what a poet should be like and what is the role of poet in the society, or how is he going to influence the society around him. So let us now discuss what Wordsworth has to say about poetry individually. We're going to break it down. We're going to discuss what was his theory of poetry. We're going to discuss his theory of diction, and we're going to discuss what he thinks should be the subject matter of poetry and why he has chosen what he has chosen. And we are going to discuss what should be a poet like. और इसके अलावा जो वर्ड्सवर्थ की एक थ्योरी है जिसमें वो ये कहता है, जिसमें वो ये प्रूव करता है कि मैन इज़ द बेस्ट सब्जेक्ट मैटर of poetry. And of course the man किस तरह का होना चाहिए, जो इंसान जिस पर पोएम लिखेंगे वो किस तरह का इंसान होना चाहिए. He is supposed to be the simpler kind, he is supposed to be the country kind, supposed to be a villager, rustic life से जिसका ताल्लुक होगा. Why has he chosen this rustic life? Because he believes that the closer you are to nature, the simpler and elemental your passions are. जितना आप नेचर के करीब हैं, कुदरत के करीब रहेंगे, उतनी ज़्यादा आपकी इमोशंस, आपकी पैशंस उतनी ज़्यादा सिंपल होंगी, आपका थॉट प्रोसेस उतना ज़्यादा सिंपल होगा, उसमें वो वाली कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज़ नहीं आएंगी जो कि आमतौर पे सिटी लाइफ के साथ एसोसिएट की जा सकती हैं. जैसे ग्रीड नहीं होगी, एम्बिशन नहीं होगी, मटीरियलिज्म नहीं होगा, कैपिटलिज्म नहीं होगा. सो दैट्स व्हाई वर्ड्सवर्थ इज प्रोन टुवर्ड्स द कंट्री लाइफ और द रस्टिक लाइफ. ठीक है जी. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद व्हाट वी हैव टू डिस्कस हियर. वी आर डिस्कसिंग वर्ड्सवर्थ's theory of poetry. Wordsworth has described the theory of poetry and his conception of function of a poet. In this theory of poetry, he set down the origin, the nature and purpose of poetry and the function of the poet in a civil society. This just sums it up. अगर आपसे कोई पूछे कि why are you studying lyrical ballad, what is the purpose of studying the preface to the lyrical ballad, then this is the answer. That in order to understand what Wordsworth has to say about the function of poet, what does he have to say about the origin of poetry, what does he have to say about the nature of poetry and the purpose of poetry and the function of poet in a civil society. He not only tells us you all these things, but he's also telling you कि theory of poetry क्या है, what is his theory of poetry and how does it differ from the things or the theory of the poetry that has been existing before the romantic theory of poetry. He also tells you what his conception is, that the function of poet is in the society. So you have to sum it. This thing sums it up, the entire thing. कि वर्ड्सवर्थ ने आखिर के प्रीफेस लिखा तो उसका पर्पस क्या था? Was he just trying to fill a few pages and blank a few pages? No, but he was trying to explain to you a few fundamentals because he was being original now. He was going to say something new, something that has not been said. So when you're introducing something new to the society, you ought to explain yourself. So he decided that in order to explain himself, he's going to write what he is doing in this preface. And the purpose of his writing the preface was to tell you his point of view, what he think was the nature of poetry, what he think was the origin of the poetry, what he thinks should be the form of the poetry, what he thinks should be the subject matter of poetry, what he thinks should be the objective that is to be achieved by poetry, what should be a poet like, who should be a poet, what are the ideal characteristics of a poet, and what would be the function that the poet is going to perform in a society. how important the poet is going to be to a society. Because if you remember, we discussed yesterday that Wordsworth strongly believed that poetry is far higher than science and all these philosophies and everything, because he thinks the poetry is the essence of the spirit, it's the essence of the entire knowledge. Everything can be incorporated in poetry. Science में poetry नहीं डाली जा सकती, poetry के अंदर scientific facts डाले जा सकते हैं. हमने metaphysical poets में ये देखा भी है कि geographical elements, scientific elements, biological elements, सब कुछ उसके अंदर डाल जाते हैं. So he says that it is not necessary that you keep the things separated in containers में बनाएं, उनको रखें, but poetry is so vast, it's so flexible that you can incorporate all these things into poetry. So he is not saying कि poetry has to have this limited subject matter, जैसे कि classes believe करते थे, we have discussed it, कि they believed कि poetry का कुछ खास subject matters होने चाहिए और उन subject matters से इधर उधर जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. They believe that if poetry had to deal with the realities of life, it is only going to deal with the realities of life. It's not going to deal with very ordinary kind of subjects. अब उसमें सब्जेक्टिविटी का एलिमेंट नहीं था, उसमें सब्जेक्टिविटी की स्पेस नहीं थी क्लासिस्ट्स में. रोमांटिक्स में ये वर्ड्सवर्थ ने ये चीज़ इंट्रोड्यूस कराई है कि थिंग्स शुड बी सब्जेक्टिव, इमोशंस इन्वॉल्व होने चाहिए, लोगों की इंटरप्रिटेशंस इन्वॉल्व होनी चाहिए, पोइट की इंटरप्रिटेशन इन्वॉल्व होनी चाहिए. द पोइट्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू एंड द रीडर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, both of them interpret what a piece of literature is going to be like. What does it mean? Okay? So you have to keep this in mind, that this was the purpose of writing the lyrical ballads, that he's trying to explain to you everything that you might be thinking about it. Wordsworth defined poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origins from emotions recollected in tranquility. पहले पोइट्री कहाँ से ओरिजिन होगी? जब आप when you have this spontaneous overflow of emotions, you look at something and you feel something. There's certain that your heart leaps, that there's something goes down in your stomach. You know that fluttery feeling that you have in your stomach when you look at something very beautiful. You sit there in awe and you look at, oh, it's so beautiful. It can be a valley, it can be a mountain covered with snow, it can be a rainbow, it can be beautiful flowers that we see outside in the springtime. It can be anything. It can be a beautiful woman, it can be a beautiful man, anything made by God. If it creates this spontaneous overflow of emotion in you, then it can be converted into poetry. लेकिन ये poetry में तब convert होती है when it takes its origin from emotions recollected in tranquility. When you sit back and you relax and suddenly all those powerful emotions come back to you. इसके लिए आपको थोड़ी सी वो स्टेट इमेजिन करनी पड़ेगी. द स्टेट वॉज दैट इफ यू रिलैक्सिंग इन योर आर्म चेयर, आप उस स्टेट में गए हैं, कॉन्शियस, सेमी कॉन्शियस, सब कॉन्शियस के दरमियान में गए, यू आर हवरिंग, यू नॉट इवन स्लीपिंग, इट्स द ट्वाइलाइट टाइम, यू आर सिटिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ द फायर इन योर आर्म चेयर एंड समथिंग कम्स टू यू. When you relax, something that's pleasurable generally, unless and until you're a pessimist or you're a sadist, something pleasurable would come to you. And that something pleasurable would be something that has caused a spontaneous overflow of emotions. जिस चीज़ ने वो spontaneous overflow of emotions आप में cause किया था, it would be the emotions and the thing itself would be recollected in tranquility. जब आप रेस्ट कर रहे थे, जब आप ट्रैंक्विल थे, जब आप आराम की स्टेट में थे, जब आप रिलैक्स स्टेट में थे, इट वुड कम बैक टू यू. ट्रैंक्विलिटी की शर्त इसलिए लगाई गई है कि आपने ये चीज़ 3-4 दफ़ा पढ़ ली है कि a poet is going to be a person who is going to think long and deep. So the person who is going to be in a state of excitement can't be a good poet. ठीक है, बिकॉज इन द स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट ये है कि कोई भी चीज़ आपको किसी वक्त भी अच्छी लग सकती है और थोड़ी देर के लिए अच्छी लगती है. द पासिंग ऑफ अ मोमेंट, अ फ्रैक्शन ऑफ अ सेकेंड, यू लाइक समथिंग, बट something that should be good, something that is originally good, or something that can be recollected again and can in recollection can create the same kind of emotion, that thing is going to be the subject of your poetry. That thing can force you to do poetry, to write poetry. तो ट्रैंक्विलिटी की शर्त सिर्फ इसलिए है कि उस वक्त स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट वो नहीं होनी चाहिए जो उस चीज़ को देखने पे थी. इसकी एग्जांपल आप इस तरह भी ले सकते हैं कि कुछ कलर्स इस तरह के होते हैं जो जब फैशन में आते हैं तो एवरी वंस मैड अबाउट देम. ठीक है, ऑल दीज नियॉन कलर्स, ये जो नियॉन ग्रीन, ऑरेंज एंड दिस हॉट पिंक दैट दे यूजिंग नाउअडेज. अब ये सारे जो नियॉन कलर्स हैं ये चूंकि फैशन में हैं तो एक दफ़ा आपको बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं. And you want to spend money on buying some dress or on a nail color or something of that color. लेकिन जब आप इम्पल्सिव नहीं हैं और आप आराम से बैठ के संजीदगी से सोचेंगे तो फिर आप सोचेंगे कि यार मैं 10-12 हज़ार रुपये एक सूट पे लगा दूं, अगर वो इस रंग का है बाद में पहना नहीं जाएगा, तो फिर आप कहते हैं कि हाँ आई हैव टू रीथिंक माई डिसीजन. द सेम थिंग हैपन्स है. द सब्जेक्ट मैटर ऑफ पोइट्री अकॉर्डिंग टू वर्ड्सवर्थ कैन बी एनीथिंग, बट दैट एनीथिंग हैज टू बी स्ट्रॉन्ग इनफ. इट हैज टू क्रिएट स्ट्रॉन्ग इनफ फीलिंग्स. और ये टेस्ट ऑफ फीलिंग्स है, ये उसकी स्ट्रेंथ का टेस्ट जो है वो कैसे होगा? जब आप ट्रैंक्विल हैं, जब आप आराम से बैठे हैं, जब आप स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट में नहीं हैं. ओनली देन यू कैन डिसाइड दैट दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई वांट टू राइट अबाउट. The emotion is contemplated till the tranquility disappears, and an emotion kindred to that which was before the subject of contemplation is gradually produced and does itself actually exist in mind. Something that would disappear then. If the thing does not disappear, if you can think about it passionately as well as calmly, जब वो ट्रैंक्विलिटी खत्म भी हो जाती है, इवन देन आफ्टर एक चीज आपके दिमाग में आ गई थी ना, आपको पता चल गया कि हाँ ये चीज मैंने देखी थी, एंड नाउ आई एम रिकलेक्टिंग द फीलिंग्स एज वेल एंड द ऑब्जेक्ट. फिर जब वो ट्रैंक्विलिटी खत्म हो जाती है और उसके बाद भी वो चीज अगर आपके दिमाग में एग्जिस्ट कर रही है उसी इमोशनल लेवल पे जिस पे बाकी चीजें एग्जिस्ट करती हैं, तो देन ऑफ कोर्स देन द थिंग इज इंपॉर्टेंट इनफ, इट्स स्ट्रॉन्ग इनफ टू बी द सब्जेक्ट मैटर ऑफ योर पोइट्री. द पोएटिक प्रोसेस. अच्छा, अब इसमें हमने ये भी देखा था कि वर्ड्सवर्थ ने खाली आपको ये नहीं बताया था कि पोइट्री क्या है, कैसे लिखी जाएगी, बल्कि उसने वो प्रोसेस भी एक्सप्लेन किया जिसके जरिए पोइट्स जो है वो पोइट्री लिखते हैं. ठीक है. Poetry is an overflow of powerful emotions, which involves a reconciliation of opposite powerful emotions and profound thoughts. अब ये सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि जो आपने देख लिया वो स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ इमोशंस जो है उसको आपने पेपर पे डिपिक्ट कर दिया, लिख दिया आउटराइटली, जैसे आपने फील किया वैसे लिख दिया. इट्स अ रिकंसिलेशन ऑफ ऑपोजिट फीलिंग्स. यू हैव ऑपोजिट फीलिंग्स व्हेन यू सी समथिंग ब्यूटीफुल. यू वांट टू स्नैच इट फ्रॉम दैट प्लेस वेयर यू सी इट. सो इन चीज़ों को इनको रिकंसाइल करती है पोइट्री आपस में. आपकी जो अंदर हैप हैज़र्ड फीलिंग्स हैं, आपके अंदर जो हैप हैज़र्ड इमोशंस हैं, फीलिंग्स उनको जो फीलिंग्स हैं उनको रिकंसाइल करेगी. इट वुड बी समथिंग दैट you have already given a profound thought to. Unless and until you have given a profound thought to that something, you won't be writing poetry. The sequence of events described in the preface for the production of poetry is a notable experience. पहली चीज poetry produce करने के लिए is a notable experience, something that is noteworthy, something that is extraordinary, something that something that has affected you. It's not something that has never happened before. You might have passed the same brook so many times. You might have crossed the same bridge 100 times. But that something that would instigate this inspiration of poetry in you would happen, would be a notable thing. Okay? That would be something that would strike a chord in you, that would strike a string of your heart, जो आपके दिल के किसी तार को छेड़ेगी. और फिर उस notable experience के बाद next है deep and long contemplation. If that thing was notable enough, if that thing was worthy enough, if that thing was striking enough, then you're going to sit and think about it long and deep. It's not going to be, in the passing moment that you think about, हाँ कितनी प्यारी झाड़ी है, इसमें कितने प्यारे पर्पल रंग के फूल लगे. No, if you like the bush so much, filled with this purple flowers, your crimson flowers, you're going to think about it. You're going to think about long and deep. You're going to contemplate on it. आप उसको देखेंगे, आप कहेंगे हाँ कितनी खूबसूरत है, पत्तों की शेप कितनी प्यारी है, फूलों की जो पेटल्स हैं, how beautiful they are. Look at the purple and inside there is this purple line and look at this yellow center in between. आप उस पूरी चीज को काफी देर बैठ के सोचेंगे उसके बारे में, फिर उसकी सराउंडिंग्स के बारे में सोचेंगे. This is contemplation. You're observing this. फिर आप उसकी खाली चीज की शेप को नहीं देखेंगे, बल्कि आप उसकी डेप्थ में भी जाएंगे कि what kind of feelings did it give rise to you in, what kind of feelings did it give rise in you, what did you feel when you looked at it. फिर अपने इमोशंस की भी एनालिसिस करना है, उसके बारे में भी सोचना है. जनरली हम ये काम नहीं करते. वी डोंट थिंक अबाउट आवर इमोशंस, डू वी? हम there's this एक्सट्रीम सा इलेक्ट्रिक करंट सा हमारे अंदर से गुजरता है जिसके बारे में हमें पता चल जाता है कि ये पॉजिटिव था या नेगेटिव था किसी चीज को देख के. ठीक है. यू सी समथिंग दैट यू लाइक टू ईट, यू लुक एट इट एंड दिस समथिंग हैपेंस इनसाइड यू. थोड़ा सा जंप होगा आपका हार्ट, कोई ऐसा अंडर करंट आपके अंदर से गुजरेगा कि आपको लगेगा हाँ दिस इज पॉजिटिव, एक ऑरा सा आपको फील होता है उस चीज से. या एक कोई चीज है जैसे इफ दिस डॉग कमिंग टुवर्ड्स मी, आई हैव दिस नेगेटिव एरा इन मी, ऑरा इन मी, दैट इज आई फील दिस नेगेटिव इम्पल्स that I don't like whatever is coming towards me. So It's not that kind of thing. You'll have to contemplate long and deep. You'll sit there and think about it. What you saw, how does it affect you? What kind of emotions did it give rise in you? A period of tranquility. ठीक है जी, सबसे पहले एक notable experience था, फिर there was a contemplation, long and hard contemplation, long, hard and deep contemplation, and then there is a period of tranquility. आराम का, सुकून का एक पीरियड आ रहा है जिसमें कोई स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट नहीं है. स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट उस चीज़ को देखने पे ज़रूर हुई थी. यू लाइक्ड इट और यू डिडंट लाइक इट, व्हाटएवर द केस में बी, उस वक्त एक स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट थी. उस स्टेट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट के बाद अपने कॉन्टेम्पलेशन की, कॉन्टेम्पलेशन के बाद नेक्स्ट स्टेट आती है स्टेट ऑफ ट्रैंक्विलिटी, स्टेट ऑफ रिलैक्सेशन, व्हेन योर इमोशंस आर नॉट चार्ज्ड अप. Sudden overflow of powerful feeling as that notable experience is collected. Powerful feelings शुरू में भी आई हैं, ठीक है, वो notable experience हुआ है, लेकिन जब वो आपने रिकलेक्ट किया उस ट्रैंक्विलिटी की स्टेट में, उस नोटेबल एक्सपीरियंस को आपने उसको याद किया, आपने सोचा रात को बिस्तर पे लेट के कि आज मैंने क्या देखा था, तो उस वक्त अगर वो पावरफुल फीलिंग्स दोबारा आ रही हैं तो फिर it means के that is the process by which poetry is created. You have reached the inspiration point. You have reached the point where poetry would be created. Pleasure in poet's pleasurable emotion as the experience is recaptured and repeated shaping of the poem, hardly touched on in the preface, except as a transition in the pleasure of the poet, pleasure for the reader. अच्छा जी, अब प्लेजर जो है कि पोएट को क्या प्लेजर मिल रहा है इसके प्रोसेस में while he's forming this poem, what kind of pleasure is he going to get out of it? Is he getting any pleasure out of it? That is not the question. ठीक है, that is not what Wordsworth is addressing in his preface. He says that this is just a transition, this process of pleasure, the pleasure that he's getting out of that notable experience, or by recollecting that notable experience, or maybe the pleasure he gets out of contemplating, or the process of creativity. उससे जो pleasure poet को मिल रहा है, it is nothing as compared to the pleasure of the reader. Pleasure shaping of the poem में भी है, pleasure उस चीज़ का भी है कि the reader is going to read the poem and he is going to get the pleasure out of it. So the pleasure is threefold here. It's the pleasure of the experience है, it's the pleasure of creativity, and it's the pleasure of making someone happy, giving someone pleasure. So इसको Wordsworth ज़्यादा address नहीं करता because he thinks it's transitory. But we have to keep that in mind that Wordsworth doesn't think that poetry does not have this end. He believes that poetry has this end, that it has to be pleasurable at every cost. In the end, poetry is there for the sake of pleasure. Wordsworth's definition of poetry. अच्छा, Wordsworth believes that there is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. ये words आपको याद रखने चाहिए because in times to come this is how you're going to define poetry. Wordsworth or Coleridge, they're very powerful poets, and I wonder if you notice कि हमारी जो poetical sensibilities हैं हमारी generation की, हमारे से पहले वाली generation की, ये बहुत ज़्यादा shaped up हैं according to what Wordsworth and Coleridge have taught us. हम जो चीज़ों को appreciate करते हैं, जो छोटी छोटी चीज़ों को देख के खुश होते हैं, it is from the romantics. हम unconsciously भी romantics को follow करते हैं. So this thing you have to keep that in mind because this will be quoted again and again, and this would be asked from you again and again. What does he think of poetry? How does he define poetry? So you should know that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions or powerful feelings. This refers to the nature of poetry. कि poetry होती क्या है आखिर? Poetry is a matter of feeling and mood. ठीक है, जब उसने ये कह दिया ना कि it is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, तो आप feelings को, emotions को, mood को, atmosphere को poetry में से नहीं निकाल सकते. जबकि पहले जो classes थे, they believed कि poetry has nothing to do with the mood, it has nothing to do with feelings, it has nothing to do with emotions. लेकिन Wordsworth ने कहा कि it has everything to do with emotions, because उसने तो अपनी जो poetry की definition बताई उसके अंदर ही उसने ये बात कर दी कि this is spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. It is going to determine your mood as well. It's going to determine your emotions. It is based on your feelings. So ये nature है poetry कि it is going to be dependent on the the feelings and the moods. It flows from the internal feelings of the poet. जो वो फील कर रहा है ना, जो पोइट फील कर रहा होगा उस वक्त, तो वही बात जो मैंने आपसे अभी थोड़ी देर पहले की है कि वो पॉजिटिवली फील कर रहा है या नेगेटिवली फील कर रहा है. जैसे भी इमोशंस उसके अंदर चार्ज अप हो गए हैं किसी भी नोटेबल एक्सपीरियंस के रिजल्ट में, वो सारे जो चीजें हैं ना, वो जो सारा इमोशन है उससे वो दैट इज द origin of poetry. ठीक है. So mood, feeling and the internal feelings of the poet, these are the points. These are the points from which poetry is going to originate. This is Wordsworth's definition of poetry: feelings, moods and internal feelings of the poet. They give rise to poetry. This is what the nature of poetry is. This is what the poetry is based upon. When the poet is in the poetic mood, he sings out rapture as sorrow spontaneously from the core of heart. अच्छा जी, अब अगर वो पोइटिक मूड में है, ठीक है, उस इंस्पायर्ड है, कुछ देखा है उसने और उससे वो इंस्पायर हो गया. इंस्पिरेशन का मतलब आपको समझ आता होगा. इंस्पिरेशन इज समथिंग दैट व्हेन यू आर और चार्ज्ड अप और हाइटेंड और यू वांट टू डू समथिंग, देयर इज दिस क्रिएटिव इम्पल्स इन यू, यू नो, यू आर बजिंग विद द क्रिएटिव इम्पल्स. So when you have that creative impulse in you, then anything that you see, it can either make you rapture यानी कि वो raptures होते हैं ना, raptures of happiness. आप ऊंची ऊंची आवाज में गाना शुरू कर देते हैं, या आप अपना वो जो rapture sorrow है उसको भी एक rapturous, आप जोर से रोना शुरू कर देंगे, आप उससे अपना catharsis करेंगे. So the poetic mood can lead to both the things. It can either make you sing or it can make you express your sorrow in any way. It would be spontaneous. It would not be something that you'll think about it first and then do it. This rapture would be spontaneous. उसके बाद फिर contemplation का process start होगा. But everything or anything that he feels in that poetic mood would be from his heart. Mind has nothing to do with it. You have to keep that in mind here. कि Augustans जो थे ना, they believed in the rule of mind. Wordsworth कहता है कि जो भी experience इस poet का होगा, it is going to be from the heart. उसकी जो feelings, internal feelings, जो spontaneous overflow of emotions को cause कर रही हैं, they are from the core of his heart. His heart is causing these things to flow. In a poetic mood, poetry flows freely, flows out naturally from poet's heart. In such moments, his language of discourse becomes the language of poetical inspiration. जब वो poetic mood में है, तो जो powerful feelings हैं, जो poetical feelings हैं, they will start overflowing. और फिर जब poetical feelings automatically inspired हैं और they're flowing, then the language would change to that of the language of poetry. Language of poetry जो है वो आप जबरदस्ती नहीं डाल सकते हैं. Language of poetry आप लोगों को force नहीं कर सकते कि please speak in language of poetry. Wordsworth से कि language of poetry का origin कुछ रूल्स को फॉलो करके नहीं आएगा, कुछ रूल्स ऑफ डिक्शन को फॉलो करके नहीं आएगा, कुछ ग्रामर को फॉलो करके नहीं आएगा, कुछ लिटरेरी टेक्निक्स या लिटरेरी डिवाइसेस को फॉलो करके नहीं आएगा, बल्कि पोइटिकल लैंग्वेज जो है ना वो तब आएगी व्हेन देयर इज दिस स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ पोइटिकल फीलिंग्स, इंटरनल फीलिंग्स in the poet. When he has that inspiration inside him, when he has that overflow of poetical feelings in him, the language he will be using would automatically become that of a poetical inspiration or poetical language. Poetry cannot be composed under duress. Duress का मतलब ये है, वैसे तो duress का मतलब stress होता है, लेकिन यहाँ पे Wordsworth what he wants to say is कि उसको confine नहीं कर सकते, उसको limit नहीं कर सकते, because poetry has to come naturally. It has to be without any constraints. अगर आप उस पर कंस्ट्रेंट्स लगा देंगे कि उसका ये वाला मीटर होगा, इस मीटर से नहीं, इस मीटर में पोइट्री नहीं हो सकती, ये वाले वर्ड्स यूज नहीं हो सकते, ये वाला सब्जेक्ट यूज नहीं हो सकता, तो आप उसको ड्यूरेस में डाल रहे हैं, आप उसको स्ट्रेस में डाल रहे हैं, आप उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर रहे हैं. सो वर्ड्सवर्थ स्ट्रांगली बिलीव्स कि पोइट्री तो स्ट्रेस में हो ही नहीं सकती है. पोइट्री पे आप किसी किस्म की रिस्ट्रिक्शंस नहीं लगा सकते, आप उसको कंस्ट्रेन नहीं कर सकते. द क्लियर स्प्रिंग ऑफ पोइट्री मस्ट फ्लो फ्रीली. Clear spring, mind the words, he has used the word clear spring of poetry must flow freely and spontaneously. It cannot be made to flow through artificially laid pipes. This is direct criticism on the new classists or the Augustans. It is a clear spring because it is from the heart. Original thoughts हैं, extremely pure thoughts हैं. They have no, impurity added to them. It is not artificial. It is not done for the sake of doing poetry. पोइट्री इसलिए की जा रही है बिकॉज देयर इज सम सॉर्ट ऑफ हाई कंसंट्रेटेड इमोशनल एक्सपीरियंस गोइंग ऑन, और उसकी वजह से पोइट्री हो रही है. पोइट्री करने के लिए एक्सपीरियंस को क्रिएट नहीं किया जा रहा. सो दे आर प्योर एंड दे फ्री एंड दे आर क्लियर. So when they're flowing, they have to flow naturally. उनका अपना वो अपना कोर्स खुद निकालेगी. जैसे दरिया अपना रास्ता खुद बनाता है, इस the poetry is going to find its own way. It's going to come out in its own kind of words. वो अपनी लैंग्वेज खुद ही डिटर्मिन कर लेगा क्योंकि उसके इमोशंस जो हैं वो प्योरेस्ट फॉर्म में हैं. जब उसके इमोशंस प्योरेस्ट फॉर्म में होंगे तो इट्स गोइंग टू फाइंड इट्स वे itself. It's going to be free and it's going to be spontaneous. You don't have to tell it what to do. वो इमोशंस अपने लिए खुद ही वर्ड्स चूज करेंगे और वो खुद ही से बहना शुरू हो जाएंगे. यू कैन नॉट मेड इट फ्लो थ्रू आर्टिफिशियली लेड पाइप्स. What does this mean? This means that you can't restrict it, you can't set out rules, you can't, tell कि इस stanza में इतने ही lines होनी चाहिए और इन lines का ये वाला मीटर होना चाहिए और इससे ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. या चलिए अगर आप ये कर भी लेते हैं तो फिर आप बाकी चीजों की रिस्ट्रिक्शन भी नहीं लगाएंगे कि जी ये चीज नहीं डिस्कस हो सकती, ये चीज डिस्कस हो सकती है. अगर आपने इफ यू हैव टॉक अबाउट रियलिटीज ऑफ लाइफ, डू नॉट इन्वॉल्व योर इमोशंस इन इट. These things are artificial according to Wordsworth. So you can't restrict poetry in these ways. You have to let it go. You have to let it flow freely and spontaneously at the same time. So expression of powerful feelings. Wordsworth talks of expressing powerful feelings felt in the heart and not generated in the mind. ये डिफरेंस है ऑगस्टिन्स में और रोमांटिक्स में. वर्ड्सवर्थ सेज कि जो पावरफुल फीलिंग्स है ना जो पोइट्री क्रिएट करेंगी, ये कहाँ प्रोड्यूस होंगी? दे गोइंग टू बी प्रोड्यूस्ड इन योर हार्ट. दे गोइंग टू राइज इन योर हार्ट बिकॉज हार्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू हिम इज द ऑर्गन ऑफ इमोशन एंड माइंड इज नॉट. ऑर्गन ऑफ पोइट्री भी हार्ट ही है. माइंड में ये इमोशन प्रोड्यूस नहीं होगा. इमोशन के लिए हमेशा दिल होता है. पोइट्री टेक्स इट बर्थ इन द स्प्रिंग ऑफ द हार्ट एंड नॉट द कोल्ड स्टोर ऑफ द इंटेलेक्ट. According to Wordsworth, intellect is the cold store. He has used these harsh terms for intellect. Logic and reason cannot give rise to emotion. Heart is always, heart and mind are always against each other, right? Because heart is going to do something that is emotional, that is impulsive, whereas mind is going to be always logical and reasonable, telling the heart not to follow this path. Mind would be going on a different path and the heart would be going on a different path. It's very rare that it happens that mind and heart are on the same page. Poetry is born not in the mind but in the heart overflowing with emotions. These are the exact words of Wordsworth. He says that if there is the heart, and if the heart is soft enough to feel the emotions, only then there will be poetry. It would be born in the heart that is filled with emotion. अब वो emotion से कैसे fill होगा? We already know that there's going to be a spontaneous overflow of emotions as a result of some notable experience. And after that notable experience, what are they going to do? They're going to have this they're going to have this period of contemplation, and after that period of contemplation there's going to be a state of tranquility, and then there is the recollection of the notable experience, and as a result of that recollection they're going to have that again the same powerful feelings in the heart which were there in the beginning. All of us feel, so does the poet. ठीक है. अब आप भी अपने आप को पोइट कह सकते हैं क्योंकि अक्सर लोग अपने आप को जस्ट बिकॉज दे फील सम व्हाट हैपेंस, समवन हु हैज अ गुड एस्थेटिक सेंस, समवन हु नोज हाउ टू ड्रेस वेल, समवन हु नोज हाउ टू हु कैन स्केच वेल, they call themselves artists and creative artists, and they call themselves fashion designers, or they call themselves painters. But Wordsworth says there has to be a distinction. We can feel, so can the poet feel. ठीक है? So just because both of us can feel doesn't mean that both of us are poets. A poet is going to feel a little more intensely and deeply as well. Deeply की शर्त जरूर है साथ. It's not going to be only the intensity but the depth as well. It has to be deep. ठीक है. डेप्थ का मतलब ये है कि वो अपने गहराई में जाके सोचते हैं, आपने चीज़ों को सुपरफिशियल नहीं लेना. जस्ट बिकॉज समथिंग अपेयर्स टू बी ब्यूटीफुल, इट्स नॉट ब्यूटीफुल. जैसे कि सॉलिटरी रीपर है या जैसे डैफोडिल्स हैं. अब कितने लोग हैं जो डैफोडिल्स का इस तरह, जैसे अमेरिकी की साइड पे जाते हैं तो वो दे हैव दीज ब्यूटीफुल डेजीज. जब मौसम थोड़ा सा बेहतर होगा ना अगस्त के एंड में तकरीबन, तो दे हैव दीज फील्ड्स ऑफ डेजीज. वो पूरे के पूरे पहाड़, जिस तरह स्लोप है पहाड़ की, वो उन फूलों से कवर्ड होते हैं. जंगली फूल है, ऑटोमेटिकली खुद ही ग्रो कर कर जाता है, but they're beautiful and I see them every time I go there. But I don't create poetry. I don't write like Wordsworth wrote about daffodils, because what I saw the beauty of it, but I can't assess my own emotions. I cannot recollect them again, and it won't create the same kind of feeling that it created in the first place. चीज़ देख के मेरे अंदर वो emotional feeling ज़रूर आएगी, मेरे heart के अंदर, मेरे दिल के अंदर, मेरे अंदर वो poetical sensibility, it would start to, you know, rise. But I am not a poet, because I won't be feeling it that intensely and that deeply as a poet would. He would know, he would automatically, because there's an organic sensibility there as well. So वो organic sensibility would give rise to this emotional feeling in his heart that would stay there. मेरी emotional feeling start होगी और वहीं ख़त्म हो जाएगी. मेरी emotional feeling में वो intensity नहीं आएगी और वो depth भी नहीं आएगी जो कि poet की emotional feeling में है. जो उसके heart के अंदर it is going to be this rush of emotions. It's going to stay there. Mine would, you know, it would gradually go away, because, you know, I'm talking about that field of beautiful daisies, and I'm not feeling that powerful emotion of feeling. I'm not feeling that rush of feeling in my heart. I'm just talking to you in a very calm and collected manner about what my mind is telling me to say. तो मैं poet से इस तरह different हो जाऊंगी. So the difference between me and poet will be in not only in intensity but in depth as well. The poet's heart leap up when he beholds a rainbow. I like a rainbow as well. But if अगर हफ्ते में 3 दफ़ा रेनबो निकलेगी तो पहली दफ़ा तो I will be very happy to see a rainbow. रेनबो निकली हुई है, I'll tell everyone around me कि देखो देखो आसमान पे देखो रेनबो निकली हुई है, कितनी प्यारी लग रही है. But the second day, rainbow, and the third day, okay fine, there's a rainbow again. But every time a poet sees a rainbow, his heart would leap out. He would enjoy the colors. He would enjoy the shape of the rainbow. He would imagine whether there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. He would think of so many things. He would think, where the rainbow going? Where is the rainbow coming from? Where is it originating from? Who's standing where the rainbow is originating from? मैं तो ऐसी बातें नहीं सोच रही हूँ. मैं तो सीधे सीधे देख रही हूँ, हाँ कितना अच्छा है, कितने अच्छे कलर्स हैं, इसका मतलब मौसम अच्छा हुआ है, बारिश हो रही है, धूप भी हो रही है, तो रेनबो निकल आई है. आई वुड थिंक अबाउट द साइंटिफिक फैक्ट एज वेल. बट जो इंटेंसिटी और डेप्थ उस पोएट में होगी, जो इमोशंस उसके अंदर आएंगे, वो मेरे अंदर नहीं आ रहे. सो दैट्स द डिफरेंस बिटवीन मी एंड द पोएट. The heightened emotional state of the poet finds expression through the verses. Thus, according to Wordsworth, deep emotions is the fundamental condition of poetry. That's the fundamental. ये जो feeling है ना, जैसे अभी हम पीछे बात करके आएंगे, कि ये जो emotions हैं ये इतने powerful होंगे कि they will automatically give rise to poetry. The poetry would find its way out. It would come out naturally. वो emotions इतने powerful होंगे, लेकिन उन emotions के powerful होने के लिए, of course, that जो एक शर्त, एक condition words होते हैं लगाई हुई है, that is of organic sensibility. वो innate भी है, पैदा हुए हैं आप उसके साथ, some sort of thingy that you're born with. Acha, according to Wordsworth, deep emotion is the fundamental condition of poetry. It is the feeling that matters. Wordsworth बाकी सारी चीज़ों को हटा देता है. He says कि it's the feeling that matters. It is this deep emotional feeling. Emotional feeling is not the right word. It's the deep emotional condition that you undergo. Okay? It's the deep emotional state that you undergo, which would give rise to poetry. Feelings is all. If you feel for something, it would give rise to poetry. Why is the greatest poetry ever written is written by people who were unhappy? Why? Because they felt that unhappiness. The greatest music created हुआ है, it's created by men who were extremely depressed. तो एक खास किस्म की फीलिंग तो थी ना, चाहे वो प्लेजेंट थी या अनप्लेजेंट थी. जैसे कीट्स की पोएट्री, why we attracted to it so much? Because it comes out from natural feeling of despondence, of unrequited love. Keats was in love with a woman who was not returning his love, who was not returning his favors, and he had this ongoing burning passion which was not, reciprocated. So he writes La Belle Dame sans Mercy. And when you read La Belle Dame sans Mercy, you understand it. It is the internal emotion. वो जो उसका emotion था, वो आपके अंदर कभी भी नहीं आ सकता, unless and until you go through that powerful feeling. If you have that powerful feeling, poetry would come naturally. If you do not have that powerful feeling, accompanied by, of course, organic sensibility, you can't be a poet. Keats was a poet because he had the organic sensibility, but he also had the powerful feeling. The feeling of unrequited love, the feeling of unreciprocated love. It caused him to write. it made him write. It just came out of him, and he created very, very great poetry. He discards Wordsworth, not Keats. He discards the Aristotelian doctrine. For him, the plot or situation is not the first thing. Aristotle तो कहते थे ना कि plot और situation ही सारा कुछ है. Plot अगर अच्छा है तो सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. It would have the desired effect. Plot जो है वो सारी चीज़ों को इकट्ठा कर लेगा. Plot characters को भी overcome कर सकता है. खाली characters important होना, अच्छे होना important नहीं है, strong होना important नहीं है. It's not important to have a prognosis or anagnosis or peripecia. These things, according to Aristotle, they were not important. According to him, mythos was the most important thing. If mythos was strong, everything would be pulled together. Everything would make sense. Wordsworth says, no, plot is not that important. It is most important thing, according to Wordsworth, was the feelings therein developed gives importance to the action situation. जो feelings poet के अंदर develop हो रही हैं और जो feelings वो portray कर रहा है, that would automatically add to the situation and it would automatically add to the action. He strongly believes in it because you see, whatever he has written, everything that he has written is ordinary. He is talking of a girl who's reaping a field. ठीक है, अब वो गा रही है और साथ साथ गंदम काट रही है, जो भी कर रही है, शी इज रीपर. ठीक है, अब वो कुछ रीप कर रही है, खेत में काम कर रही है, and she's singing at the same time. And he's written a poem about it. He's written about the daffodils. He's written about the lake. He's written about so many other things which are very common, something that you see every day. But it is the feeling that arose in him. It's a feeling that these things give, the emotions that he felt on witnessing these things, the emotions he experienced that give rise to the situation and the action. There's no action in there. There's no action. There's no situation as such. कोई चीज़ solve नहीं हो रही, कोई चीज़ resolve नहीं हो रही, कोई चीज़ crisis से एंटी क्लाइमेक्स की तरफ नहीं जा रही, कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. सिंपल एक लड़की है जो खेत में काम कर रही है, एंड वर्ड्सवर्थ ऑब्जर्विंग हर, और उसको उसने इतनी लेजेंडरी तो मैं नहीं उसको कहना चाहती, बट ही हैज क्रिएटेड अ मास्टरपीस आउट ऑफ इट, समथिंग दैट इवन टुडे पीपल लाइक एंड लाइक टू रीड एंड टॉक अबाउट. So it is the feelings according to Wordsworth. Aristotle ने mythos पे फोकस किया और Wordsworth ने किस पे फोकस किया? उसने फोकस किया feelings पे, emotions पे. उसने कहा कि feelings और emotions अगर होंगे तो automatically सारी चीजें जो है वो इकट्ठी हो जाएंगी, क्योंकि feelings और emotions according to Wordsworth are so powerful that they can give rise to anything. They can cover up any situation. They can create any situation. आपकी feelings अगर writer की भी है, poet की भी है और अगर reader की भी है तो वो automatically situation को खुद ही interpret करेंगे, situation को खुद ही color कर लेंगे, वो एक्शन भी खुद ही क्रिएट कर लेंगे, बिकॉज द फीलिंग्स शुड बी देयर, दे शुड बी रेसिप्रोकेटेड फ्रॉम बिटवीन द रीडर एंड द पोएट, एंड दैट वुड ऑटोमेटिकली कवर एवरीथिंग. Wordsworth told the poet must be a man possessed of more than usual organic sensibility. खाली regular organic sensibility, usual, more than usual organic sensibility. In fact, sensibility is the great birthright of our being. All of us should be sensible. We should be sensitive. We should be perceptive. We should have this aesthetic sense in us as well. But if we do not have that, then we cannot be a poet. We cannot be a human being for that matter. So, एक regular sensibility तो हम सब में है, लेकिन जो poet होगा ना उसमें ज़रूरत से थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा होगी. He'll be little more sensitive. ये बड़ी common सी phenomena है. People say it day in day out that I'm an artist, that's why I'm very sensitive. ठीक है ना, artist है इसलिए इतना sensitive है, और artist है इसलिए इसने जो ज़माने की नाइंसाफ़ियाँ हैं उनको दिल पे ले लिया है. Artist तो हमेशा हसास होता है, इस तरह की बात जो है ना. So he's saying the same thing है, that a poet is going to be more sensitive, is going to be more sensible, he's going to be more perceptive towards everything happening around him. So उसकी aesthetic sense भी ज़्यादा sharp होगी, उसकी सेंसिबिलिटी ज़्यादा शार्प होंगी, वो चीज़ों को ज़्यादा डीपली अंडरस्टैंड करेगा, उन चीज़ों का ज़्यादा अच्छा एनालिसिस करेगा बाकी लोगों की निस्बत. वो चीज़ों के सिर्फ एक रुख को नहीं देखेगा. ही वुड सी द 3D पिक्चर ऑफ द थिंग्स. ही वुड नॉट सी ओनली समथिंग दैट इज पोर्ट्रेट इन फ्रंट ऑफ हिम. ये वही बात है कि पोएट जो हमने प्लेटो का पढ़ा था ना, वो केव वाली एलेगरी जो थी, जिसमें ये था कि लोग असल में इसी चीज को हकीकत समझ लेते हैं. पोएट जो है वो उस हकीकत के पीछे भी जाएगा, वो देखेगा कि ये जो शेडोज केव की वॉल पे आ रहे हैं ये असल में आ कहाँ से रहे हैं, इनका ओरिजिन क्या है. सो द पोएट वुड हैव दिस एबिलिटी इन हिम. In the case of ordinary men, it is overpowered by the weight of custom, whereas in the poet it is augmented and sustained. जो sensibility है आपके अंदर, जो आपकी sensible nature है, हमारी सेंसिबल नेचर को हमारे जो कस्टम्स हैं, हमारा कल्चर है, हमारे रवाज और रस्म हैं, ये चीज़ें जो है ये इसको रूल करती हैं। ये उसकी वजह से शेप हो जाता है, या उसकी वजह से हम अपनी सेंसिबिलिटीज़ को कई दफ़ा स्नैप कर देते हैं, या अपनी सेंसिबिलिटीज़ को नम कर देते हैं। वी डू नॉट थिंक फ्रीली, but a poet would not do that. A poet would think freely. He would not be, he would not let his sensibilities be rot away. He would not let them, decay. He would not let them, he would keep them intact. He would keep them augmented. He would not only keep them intact, he would add to them. He would cultivate them. He would let them grow so that he could be more sensitive, more perceptive, and more aesthetically groomed. That is not all Wordsworth has in mind. His poet is not simply a man of feelings. It's not that he's an emotional person जो कि हर चीज़ को देख के रो पड़ता है, या हर चीज़ को देख के खुश हो जाता है, या हर चीज़ को देख के गाना गाना शुरू कर देता है. Not only a man of feeling, there has to be something else as well. Feelings, of course, he must have, since poetry is in fact the spontaneous overflow of feelings and arise from the emotions recollected in tranquility. वही बात है कि he has to have feelings. We're not denying it, but सिर्फ feelings काफ़ी नहीं है. फीलिंग्स के अलावा भी कुछ चाहिए होगा, बिकॉज फीलिंग्स आर इम्पॉर्टेंट बिकॉज दे आर द बेसिस ऑफ पोइट्री. वर्ड्सवर्थ बहुत दफ़ा ये बात कह चुका है कि अगर फीलिंग्स नहीं है तो पोइट्री एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं कर सकती, क्रिएट ही नहीं हो सकती, बिकॉज इट इज द स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ फीलिंग्स विच वुड बी रिकलेक्टेड इन ट्रैंक्विलिटी. बट बिफोर द इमोशंस कम्स द सेंसेस, एंड इट इज नॉट ऑफ देम दैट वर्ड्सवर्थ इज थिंकिंग व्हेन ही एड्स द एपिथेट ऑर्गेनिक. सबसे पहले क्या चीज़ आएगी? सेंसेस आएंगी. हाउ यू परसीव थिंग्स, आपकी 5 सेंसेस, आपकी सेंसिबिलिटी, योर सेंसिबिलिटी टू परसीव द वर्ल्ड, योर सेंसिबिलिटी टू एनालाइज द वर्ल्ड, योर सेंसिबिलिटी टू थिंक अबाउट थिंग्स. ठीक है, आपकी एनालिटिकल एबिलिटी जो है वो भी सारी मैटर करती है. तो फीलिंग्स इंपॉर्टेंट है, लेकिन फीलिंग्स से पहले ये चीज़ आती है. लेकिन वर्ड्सवर्थ ने ये वर्ड जो है ऑर्गेनिक का क्यों यूज़ किया है, दैट इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. ऑर्गेनिक सेंसिबिलिटी then means or implies the capacity to receive impression through senses. आपके जो senses हैं, they act as filter, and they are telling you to form certain impressions. They tell you how to perceive things. They tell you how to take things, how to look at things, how to hear things, how to perceive them. The emotions which accompany the original impression revives when the impression is recalled. आपकी सेंसेस है ना, एक चीज़ आपने देखी है, आपके ज़हन पे एक इम्प्रेशन पड़ा है, उस जो इमोशंस उसके साथ आएंगे ना, वो आपकी सेंसेस के थ्रू आएंगे. इम्प्रेशन किसने बनाया? आपकी सेंसेस ने बनाया. और वो इमोशंस किसका पार्ट है? वो फीलिंग्स का पार्ट है. ठीक है, तो पहली चीज़ क्या होगी? इम्प्रेशन. और इम्प्रेशन कहाँ से आ रहा है? आपकी सेंसेस के साथ आ रहा है. आपकी जो 5 सेंसेस हैं वो इम्प्रेशन बनाती हैं. सो इमोशंस और फीलिंग से पहले जो चीज़ ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है वो आपके सेंसेस हैं. योर 5 सेंसेस, you are born with these senses, and these emotions would be revived when the impression is recalled. Impression भी recall आपकी senses ही करती हैं. The ability thus to reconstruct an emotion belongs in the eminent degree to the poet, being in fact a portion of his native endowment more than usual organic sensibility. वो जो impression जब वो recall करता है ना, जब वो ट्रैंक्विलिटी की स्टेट में है, और हमने बताया है कि पहले एक चीज़ होती है नोटेबल एक्सपीरियंस, फिर देयर इज पावरफुल इमोशंस, फिर वो पावरफुल इमोशंस जो हैं उनकी कॉन्टेम्पलेशन होती है, देन दिस द स्टेट ऑफ ट्रैंक्विलिटी. और स्टेट ऑफ ट्रैंक्विलिटी के बाद जो पोएट है उसको रिकलेक्ट करता है. जब वो रिकलेक्ट करता है ना, तो वो उस इंप्रेशन को रिकलेक्ट करता है जो उसकी सेंसेस ने गेन किया होता है. तो चूंकि वो उस इंप्रेशन को रीगेन करता है, वो इंप्रेशन इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग होना चाहिए कि आपके साथ वो दोबारा फीलिंग्स दोबारा आ जाए आप उस बंदे के अंदर, उस पोएट के अंदर. तो वो दोबारा जो फीलिंग्स आएंगी ना, वो किसके थ्रू आएंगी? वो आपकी सेंसेस के जरिए आएंगी. और वो सेंसेस किसी भी पोएट में ज़्यादा शार्प होती हैं. इट्स वेरी सिंपल, बट इट्स बीन टोल्ड यू इन अ ट्विस्टेड वे. द थिंग इज दैट you have senses. आपकी सेंसेस आपको वो इंप्रेशन दे रही हैं चीज़ों के बारे में. ठीक है, आपके दिमाग को जो इंप्रेशन पड़ेगा ना किसी भी चीज़ का, वो आपकी सेंस ऑफ टच, आपकी सेंस ऑफ स्मेल, आपकी सेंस ऑफ साइट, योर सेंस ऑफ हेयरिंग, दे वुड सेंड न्यूरॉन्स टू योर माइंड, एंड द इंप्रेशन वुड बी फॉर्म्ड ऑन दिस स्क्रीन दैट इज इन योर माइंड. आपने वो चीज़ देख ली है. ठीक है ना, आपने वो चीज़ देख ली, एंड यू हैव दिस फीलिंग्स. ठीक है, पहले सेंसेस ने चीज़ को परसीव किया और इमोशंस आ गए. आप योर हार्ट गेव राइज टू सर्टेन इमोशंस. अच्छा, देन यू आर इन द स्टेट ऑफ ट्रैंक्विलिटी एंड यू वांट टू रिकलेक्ट द इंप्रेशन. जब आप वो इंप्रेशन रिकलेक्ट करते हैं, तो अगर तो आपकी सेंसेस, द ऑर्गेनिक सेंसिबिलिटी दैट एवरी ह्यूमन बीइंग इज बोर्न विथ, if it is more than usual in case you are a poet, तो वो जो more than usual organic sensibilities है ना, वो उस impression को इस तरह create करेंगी कि वो emotions जो आपने पहली दफ़ा में notable experience की दफ़ा में feel किए थे, वही emotions दोबारा पैदा होंगे. तो वो दोबारा पैदा उसी सूरत में हो सकते हैं जब impression उतना ही accurate हो recollection में भी जितना वो पहली दफ़ा देखने में था. Do you get me? That the impressions, the sensibilities should be more than sharp. It should be sharper than other people so that the impression created, recollected, should be so strong that it creates the same strong, powerful emotions in the person that were created in the first place, which would give rise to the poetry next. Emotions recollected in tranquility. Wordsworth observed that sensibility alone is not sufficient. ठीक है, वो तो पहले दिन से यही कह रहा है कि सब sensibility चाहिए लेकिन वो enough नहीं है. It's not all. Just like he says कि feeling is not all, he also says कि sensibility is not all. It is not sufficient to ensure good poetry. It must be directed by a calm mind. So he is not like Augustine. He does not say कि बस दिमाग है. वो सिर्फ ये नहीं कहता कि बस दिल है. अगर दिल है, उसके अंदर इमोशंस हैं, तो बस यू क्रिएटिंग पोइट्री. अब आप देखिए कि ही इज गोन सो लॉजिकली. फर्स्ट ही टोल्ड यू कि सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट चीज फीलिंग्स है, एसेंस है वो, ठीक है. और वो फीलिंग्स कहाँ होंगी? आपके दिल के अंदर पैदा होंगी. इमोशंस वुड बी बिल्ट अप, द पावरफुल इमोशंस वुड बी बिल्ट अप इन योर हार्ट, नॉट इन योर माइंड, विच इज calm and which is collected and which is logical. वहां पे नहीं होगा. फिर उसने दूसरी चीज जो आपको बताई, उसने ये बताया कि सिर्फ फीलिंग्स इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, यू नीड योर सेंसेस एज वेल, बिकॉज द सेंसेस आर द वंस हु गोइंग टू क्रिएट द इंप्रेशन, और वो इंप्रेशन ही तो फिर उन फीलिंग्स को गिव राइज करेगा. सो अनलेस एंड अनटिल यू हैव द इंप्रेशन विद यू, जब तक कोई चीज आप परसीव ही नहीं सही तरह करेंगे, एक्यूरेटली करेंगे, उतनी ही डीपली करेंगे जितनी करनी चाहिए, तो वो इमोशंस, द डिजायर्ड इमोशंस would not be produced in your heart. ठीक है. फिर तीसरी चीज वो आपको ये बताता है कि देखिए जी, खाली दिल का या खाली फीलिंग्स का या खाली सेंसेस का कमाल नहीं है. इफ यू हैव गुड सेंसेस, एक्यूरेट सेंसेस, मोर देन यूजुअल ऑर्गेनिक सेंसिबिलिटी, एंड इफ यू हैव स्ट्रॉन्ग पावरफुल इमोशंस, स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ पावरफुल इमोशंस, but if these two things, if they are not directed by a calm mind, poetry does not exist. He explains the role of calm thinking and deliberate contemplation in the composition of poetry later on in the preface when he says, the emotion is contemplated till by a species of reaction, the tranquility gradually disappears, and an emotion kindred to that which was before the subject of contemplation is gradually produced, and does itself actually exist in the mind. एक प्रोसेस है पूरा जिससे पोइट गुजरता है, एक पूरा प्रोसेस ऑफ रिकलेक्शन है. ठीक है. आपको मैं ये ऑलरेडी बता चुकी हूँ कि देयर इज अ नोटेबल एक्सपीरियंस. ठीक है. नोटेबल एक्सपीरियंस के बाद इज प्रोसेस ऑफ कॉन्टेम्पलेशन. जब आपने उस चीज़ को अच्छी तरह ऑब्जर्व किया, उसके बारे में सोचा, अपनी फीलिंग्स के बारे में सोचा, आपको पता चल गया कि हाउ यू फेल्ट अबाउट दैट थिंग, then you're in a state of tranquility, relaxed state में आपके emotions charged up नहीं है, and you recollect that feeling, you recollect that impression that you had, and as a result of that recollection, what happens is this powerful emotions built up in you. अच्छा, अब जो powerful emotions आपके अंदर पैदा हो रहे हैं, what you're going to do with them? You're going to think about it, you're going to contemplate them, you're going to keep on contemplating it unless and until वो emotional state जो आपके अंदर produce होती है वो calm down हो जाएगी, and the emotion or the feeling and the impression, it would be stay in your mind just like every other thought. It would be concrete, it would be logical, you'd analyze it. यानी कि वो उस स्टेट पे पहुंच जाएगा कि जो इमोशन से माइंड के एनालिसिस में आ जाएगा, यानी कि माइंड उसको डायरेक्ट करेगा, माइंड उसको अंडरस्टैंड करेगा, माइंड उसका एनालिसिस करेगा. In this mood of successful composition generally begins, and in a mood similar to this, it is carried on. What is carried on? Poetry is carried on. जब ये स्टेट आती है ना कि आप चीज के साथ से इमोशंस आप डिटैच कर सकें, क्योंकि इमोशनल स्टेट में अकॉर्डिंग टू वर्ड्सवर्थ यू कैन नॉट क्रिएट पोइट्री. इमोशनल स्टेट इज नेसेसरी फॉर द ओरिजिन ऑफ पोइट्री. जब वो इमोशनल स्टेट जो है रिकलेक्ट भी होगी, तो उसके बाद नेक्स्ट स्टेप ये है कि आपका दिमाग उसको इमोशन से डिटैच कर दे. अब आप इमोशंस को और एक्सपीरियंस को दोनों को अलग अलग कॉन्टेम्पलेट कर सकें, दोनों को अलग अलग हैंडल कर सकें, और जब वो स्टेट ऑफ काम आप अचीव कर लेंगे, तो देन यू आर गोइंग टू create poetry, and the process of creating poetry can carry on in this state only. If you remain in that state, only then you can create good poetry. The process of poetry composition is not an easy one. देखने में तो यही लगता था कि बड़े आराम से लोग बैठते हैं और एक पूरा दीवान लिख देते हैं, ये पूरी गज़ल लिख देते हैं, पर यहाँ तो इफ़ यू फॉलो व्हाट वर्ड्सवर्थ हैज़ टू से, इफ़ यू वांट टू बी ओरिजिनल, इफ़ यू थिंक वर्ड्सवर्थ's idea of poetry is the correct one, then being a poet is not very easy. You have to follow so many of these steps. Wordsworth has mentioned 6 causes that leads to poetic composition. उसके ख्याल में 6 चीज़ें हैं जो कि 6 reasons हैं, 6 वजूहात हैं जिनके बिना पर poetic composition होती है, ठीक है. Number 1, observation and description. Number 2, sensibility. Number 3, reflections. Number 4, imagination and fancy. Number 5, invention. And number 6 is judgment. There's nothing to explain here. They're very simple. चीज़ आपने observe किया और उसको describe किया, ठीक है, अपने दिमाग में describe किया. आप कोई भी चीज़ देखते हैं तो आप उसको describe तो करते हैं, चाहे आप उस description को अपने दिमाग में उसको register कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन आप उसको observe करते हैं तो साथ आपके दिमाग में उसकी एक description भी जारी हो जाती है. आप चूंकि इतने अम्यून्ड होते हैं, इतने ट्यून्ड इन होते हैं, you do not stop and think about that description. But whenever you observe something, your mind, you know, he issues, जैसे प्रिंटर में एक कागज़ निकलता है, उस तरह एक कागज़ निकाल देते हैं कि जी ये चीज़ है जो आपने देखी है अभी, ठीक है. फिर आपकी सेंसिबिलिटीज़, जो आपकी सेंसेस हैं, वो उसका एक इम्प्रेशन फॉर्म करती हैं. वो इम्प्रेशन जो है उस पर आप सोचते हैं, यू थिंक अबाउट द इम्प्रेशन, रिफ्लेक्शन, थॉट्स. फिर उसके बाद you add imagination to it, you add the elements of fancy to it. And when you add all these things, you invent something new. And when you invent something new, then you judge it, whether it's good enough to be a piece of poetry or not. Function of poetry. What is the purpose of poetry? Why do we do poetry? Wordsworth emphasized that good poetry is never an immediate reaction to the provoking cause, that our sensation must be allowed time to back into the common fund of our experience, there to find the level and due proportion. अच्छा, वर्ड्सवर्थ कहता है कि जैसे ही आप कोई अच्छी चीज़ देखें, उस वक्त जो रश ऑफ इमोशन है, that would not be the reason for, it should not be an immediate reaction to something provocative that happened. Provocative is a negative term, that someone has provoked you into doing something, but कोई भी चीज़ आपको provoke कर सकती है. Anything can provoke you into writing poetry. But Wordsworth say that it should not be an immediate reaction. Your senses must be allowed time. They should be given time to form this impression, to give that impression time to settle down, so that the things are as common as everyday experience. और फिर अगर वो अपनी originality को retain करता है, even if it, you know, it maintains that strong feeling with it, if it maintains that importance in your mind, then poetry can be created. That level is found for them by the mind in the act of contemplation. The sensitive revive, and out of the union of the contemplating mind and the receiving sensibilities rises a unique mood of expression which we call poetry. It's not as simple as that. It's not that कि आपने एक चीज़ देखी, आपके अंदर feelings पैदा हुई, आपने उन feelings को express कर दिया. बल्कि Wordsworth कहता है कि you have to give it time, you have to contemplate about it, you have to think about it, you have to give it the revive of sensibility. Time दीजिए, revive कीजिए उसको, उसके बारे में सोचें, उसके बारे में contemplate करें, think long and deep about it. And if there is this combination, if it exists between your senses and between your mind, ठीक है, आपके contemplating mind में और आपके senses ने, दोनों चीज़ों ने उनको combine कर लिया, and even if it makes sense after this contemplation of your mind and your senses, emotions तो वहाँ हैं ही, emotions तो रह रहे हैं, अगर वो emotions retain कर लेते हैं इस combination के बाद, इस contemplation के बाद भी, if they still exist, then it would, the unique mood for a creative expression would be produced. और ये जो यूनिक मूड है ना, इट वुड गिव राइज टू पोइट्री. Wordsworth says that poetry is the breath and final spirit of all knowledge, the impassioned expression that is the continence of all science. So Wordsworth has these very high opinions about poetry. He says it's the finest of arts, it's the finest of knowledges, it's the finest of all the sciences. Whatever they have to tell, poetry knows it all. Wordsworth felt strongly that there was no worthy pursuit but the idea of doing some good for the world. ठीक है? अब that's doing something good for the world is nothing more noble than that. ठीक है? The noblest thing would be to do something good for the humanity. अब doing something good could be providing, pleasure. So for Wordsworth, that's the noblest of causes. He hoped that his poems would separate in the degree to extend the domain of sensibility for the delight, the honor and the benefit of human nature. it not only provide pleasure, but it should always be the honor of the mankind. He believes that whatever he's writing can provide honor to the mankind, can bring honor to the mankind. It should be something so great that man should be proud of saying कि हाँ जी, one of our fellow human beings wrote this. And it should benefit human nature. It should calm them down. It should soothe them down. It not only should not agitate them. It should not, make them all irritated and agitated and provoked. But it should, calm them down, soothe them down, benefit them in some way. He asserted, this is what he says is the function of poetry. That is why you should write. He asserted that poets should console the afflicted. ठीक है, poet का काम है कि वो दुखी दिलों के ऊपर मरहम रखे, ठीक है. He should make the happy happier. जो खुश हैं उनको और ज़्यादा खुश कर दे. And should lead the young and gracious of every age to see, to think and to feel. Poet is not there just to provide pleasure. He is also there to make them think. He is there to aid them in the rational process. Not only the young people, but the gracious people who want to learn, who want to think, who want to rationalize their actions and their lives. Poets should lead them. He should be able to tell them what to see, what to think, and how to feel. The good teachers, they always tell you where to look. They don't teach you everything. They just tell you कि यहाँ देखें, ये पढ़ें. This is the general idea. Then you have to do it yourself. So the same thing Wordsworth says. A good poet would just instigate that process. It would start that process of telling people what to think, when to think, how to feel. Such is the poet's office, and there is none more exalted. It's not a small feat. It's not something very minor. It's not something trivial. To make people feel pleasure, to make people happy, to console people. That's not a very trivial thing. That's an exalted office. That's a very heightened form of, service you can provide to mankind. Poetry is not a mere entertainment, a diversion for a patient's, for a nation's idle hour or a poet's idle hour. It's not a diversion. It's not there for the sake of fun. You have to have a belief in your poetry. You have to have this sense of cause in your poetry, that you're doing it for the sake of something good. ठीक है? It's not कि आपके पास और कुछ करने के लिए नहीं था तो आपने poetry करना शुरू कर दिया. ये जो ख़वातीन हज़रात होते हैं जो अपने आप को intellectual समझ रहे होते हैं just to prove their intellect, they write poetry. It's not that. Wordsworth does not believe in that. He believes that the poetry has a bigger significance. It has a bigger reason. Poetry seeks to enable and it edify. It will enable you. It would make you. It would empower you. It would add to your life. It would make your life value a little more. So it's not something that's there for the sake of pleasure only. It should have a purpose, and it should, according to Wordsworth, if it's written in the proper way. The poet through his poetry imparts moral lessons for the betterment of human life. Take a morality BB, he believes somewhat. He says that it should not tell you to be immoral. It should tell you to improve your life morally or religiously or whatever. Wordsworth says that a poetry of revolt against the moral ideas is a poetry of revolt against life. A poetry of indifference towards moral ideas is a poetry of indifference towards life. He's a good man when you read this preface. You understand what he wants to say here. You understand and you agree with him when he says that if you are writing something instigating the youth to rise against morality, if you're saying that art is for the sake of art and you have only one life and you have the right, just like sophists कहते थे कि everything is allowed as long as you achieve the end that you want to achieve. So Wordsworth says that if you're writing poetry, if you're revolting against morality, you're revolting against life. If you're writing poetry to create indifference, you're creating an indifference towards life. So for him, morality was important, and to feel towards the society, to feel towards the betterment of humanity, it was important. He did not believe in indifference. He did not believe कि society से अलग हो सकता है poet. He did not believe कि poetry को society से अलग होना चाहिए, कि it should be there for the sake of pleasure only. तो reform करने की और चीज़ें सिखाने की और morality पहुँचाने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं. He does not believe that. He believes that whatever has to be written has to have a cause. अभी तक हमने जितने उसके causes पढ़े, they're very noble. He wanted poetry to be something good, something noble, something that has a purpose. Wordsworth subscribed to the view that the poet, the particular is nothing and universal is everything. He believed that everything has to have a universal appeal. It cannot be just for a particular strata of society or just a particular nation. It has to be universal. Wordsworth is precise and emphatic in stating that the pleasure is the end of poetry. He believes that strongly. उसने कहा ठीक है, आप morality preach करें, आप you should care for people, you should make them happy, you should direct them, you should make them think, but pleasure is the end of poetry. That's the ultimate end you want to achieve when you're writing poetry. If it's only preaching, if it's only instigating thought, pleasure अगर नहीं है तो poetry का purpose achieve नहीं होता. The end of poetry is to produce excitement in coexistence with an overbalance of pleasure. ठीक है? You should be happy to be alive. Poetry पढ़ने के बाद you should have this feeling in you, this euphoric feeling. How nice to live in this world. How beautiful the world is. How beautiful my life is. It should provide you pleasure. It should make you happy with your life. Thus the rehabilitation of pleasure to a primary position was a major item in the Romantic creed, which Wordsworth was out to promulgate. Wordsworth ने जो romantic जो era था ना, उसका purpose ये था कि you have to rehabilitate to pleasure. You have to enjoy your life. You have to be happy about your life. You have to be happy about your existence. वो जो एक school of thought है जिसमें you have to be sad and pensive and you have to be serious all the time. They don't believe in that. You don't have to be a sadawa person, but you don't have to be, you don't have to be serious all the time. So Wordsworth says that you have to have this internal pleasure, you have to have this innate happiness about being alive and being in this beautiful world. So Wordsworth proposes to throw a certain colouring of imagination whereby ordinary things should be presented to the mind in an unusual aspect. Few modern poets have embodied in them work, whether by statement, by implication, so firm a sense of the dignity or worth of the common individual man. तो हमने देखा कि Wordsworth जो है, he focuses on common man and he adds dignity to the existence of common man. उसके subject matters इतने simple थे, उसके characters इतने simple थे, लेकिन उन सब के ऊपर उसने imagination का एक पूरा cover चढ़ा दिया. उसने उस simplicity को इतना colorful कर दिया कि there is not another poet who can say that he has achieved from so little. So little material was available to him and he created so much out of it. Such grandeur that he gave to common man and to the life of the common man and to the language of the common man. So this is about all, and we're going to discuss the rest of preface to the lyrical ballad in the next lecture. Thank you.